Okay, so we are live with Sabrina, and I'm going to share my screen now. All right, when's your birthday?
March 22nd, 1986, 9:22 in the morning, Washington, D.C., belly of the beast.
Oh, yeah, I don't know how I never really got what I'm supposed to write when someone's born in DC.
District of
So what
Columbia.
right, and so then what, USA or what?
Oh, well, District of Columbia would be the state. So it'd be
Oh,
Washington is the place. Yeah.
okay. Great.
It should show up now.
No,
No, interesting.
no.
Okay. Let's see. What is hmm.
So is there like a nearby city? Or is that what it's called?
It is Washington, D.C. is what it's called. Maybe just try. I mean, can you just put in DC? Does it work to just do the, no, how
Which
interesting.
state is it in?
It isn't a state. It's its own place. It's Washington, DC.
Okay. Isn't there like a nearby city, like something in Virginia?
Yeah, sure. I mean,
Oh wait, here we go.
it
Washington,
worked.
D.C. I got it. Okay.
Okay. Wow.
All
All
right.
right. Yeah, it's a
Mamma
tricky
mia.
one.
All right, yeah. Okay, 15 degrees Gemini rising, is that right?
Hmm. Not 15 degrees Gemini rising. Well, yeah, no, it's like 8 degrees Gemini rising.
Well, I have you for the 22nd of March, 1986 at 9:22 in the morning in
Okay,
Washington, D.C.
CET wouldn't be right. It would be EST, Eastern time.
Yeah, they didn't even, I mean, it didn't even register.
How
Okay,
interesting.
is there another city that's very close to Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, you could try like Arlington, Virginia.
Arlington? Yeah.
Sure.
That would put your Gemini degree at 8 degrees Gemini rising.
Yeah, okay. That's very weird. There's
E
definitely a glitch there with the time
yeah,
zone.
maybe it has, I guess so, because it's ESD for our, yeah, I don't know what's going on. But now we have it.
All right, we have it.
Oh,
Oh, good.
hooray. Okay, Saturn on the descendant.
Yeah.
That's what strikes me with the moon on the. Okay, great. Let's get into Sabrina's story at last. So, Sabrina, what do you want to share with the world? What's going on with you?
Well, what's going on with me right now is that I am about to go into labor at any time with my third baby. And it's been a very challenging pregnancy, um, which I think Saturn has quite a lot to do with. But oh, what else can I say about my life right now? My family and I during COVID expatriated, so we moved to Mexico. But I previously I had left the DC area. I'd been living in Northern California. So I live here with my family right now, and we're living a rather alternative lifestyle at the moment. Other things that are pretty interesting and different about this moment is this is sort of the first time I've stepped away from working in years to just focus on motherhood. Because when I found out I was having a third baby, which was a surprise, not a planned situation, that I just realized I couldn't kind of do it all anymore. And so, yeah, I'm sort of taking some space from my typical sort of creative work to really just focus on family right now.
Hmm. What did you do for work when you were working?
I've done a little bit of everything, but I've actually been a professional astrologer for a very long time.
Hmm. That was your primary career. When you say you stepped away from working, you stepped away from working as an astrologer.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I mostly do longer term containers with people where I am supporting them using astrology, coaching tools, spirituality. I also work in plant medicine. So I do a lot of retreats for people who come down here and utilize tools like astrology and working with psychedelics to support them through major life thresholds.
Uh-huh. Okay. So, okay, got it. Very magical. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So you work with magic, basically, like psychedelics, astrology, spirituality. That's what I heard you're doing. Yeah. Now when you tell me that you're doing an alternative lifestyle in Mexico, that also piqued my interest. I was like, so what does that mean? And then I connected with the plant medicine somehow. So can you just yeah, tie that in?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I would say it's alternative in a lot of different ways because, I have my kids in alternative schooling. We're very community based. That's a big part of my life. I'm very community oriented. So we're sort of doing, not entirely off grid, but definitely like out of the matrix, different sort of way of raising family. And my kids are involved a lot in the ceremony work that we do. I mean, not specifically with plant medicine, but I raise them in a very ceremonial sort of way. So, they do sweat lodges with us and yeah, we're just involved in a lot of more sort of indigenous spiritual practices. But I had been working with a company part time for years selling high end ayahuasca retreats because years before that, I was doing my own retreats and I still do my own retreats. In fact, probably the next big venture I have is a retreat I have planned for September that I'm doing with women. And that's kind of the next thing I'm doing work wise. But yeah, bringing people down who are ready to kind of face themselves, work through whatever big life thresholds they're in the process of, and work with generally ayahuasca, but we work with other types of psychedelics as well. And I use astrology as a way to help people make sense of this moment of their lives and why they might be ready to do something really big like that, and how to integrate it.
How lovely. Okay. Um, okay, I'm gonna start reflecting a few things too, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe this is the part of your chart that I feel is coming up for me quite often as I'm listening to you. The first part is your sun in Aries in the 11th, because you said that you're very community based in the things that you do. That intrigued me. And also because you've been hosting retreats and working in communities and having your own containers, and it sounds like you're frequently in leadership positions doing all of that. Like
Very
you're
true.
kind of the one to get it started. Also, that you live an alternative lifestyle with your family, right? That's Aries, starting anew, being someone
Hmm.
that's different, showing a new path, lighting the way, right? Lighting the way for other people because it's in the 11th house.
Hmm.
And that you work specifically with psychedelics. For me, it's very obviously Jupiter. So there's Jupiter in your 10th house because it's not just psychedelics, it's other plant medicines, it's ritual work, it's bringing people together to experience other states of consciousness, it's guiding them with astrology. And the square with Saturn on the 7th cusp in Sag for me is that you're helping people integrate difficult things that they're going through currently. So you're like a doula, right? You're walking them through dark times.
Hmm.
And so there I feel this Saturn, how it comes together with Jupiter. So these two together is kind of like what you do, the psychedelics and the spiritual traditions, working with various shamans, learning about ancient traditions and cultures, right? Saturn, Jupiter. And then you do it, of course, in community settings. So does that all make sense so far?
Oh yeah, totally. That's a really great way to look at it. And if I think back to my psychedelic awakening, it was happening around the time I had Uranus and then Neptune passing over my natal Jupiter as a teenager. And so it was kind of when all that stuff came online for me personally.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, but now we're doing more mommy duty.
Yes, we are.
That's interesting. So, what does that mean for you? What does mommy duty look like when
You know,
it's no work?
it's actually something I'm very unfamiliar with, to be fair, because I have worked through all my other babies' births. I've taken a couple, month or two or whatever off, but I've always been a very social person, and so it's been hard to not do those types of things. But I just very much have my hands full in a huge way right now, and so it's kind of been, interestingly, I actually sat in my own ceremony last year, and a big part of it was feeling like here I am in motherhood, but I'm not in motherhood in the way that I really want to be fully present because so much of my energy it can be very front facing. And that was right before I found out I was pregnant, which was a surprise, right as Uranus was entering my first house. So, yeah, it kind of was a moment where I had to rethink things. And yeah, it's not like I'm stepping away forever or anything. It's just at this moment, I'm sort of make my radius of influence, bringing it a little closer to home right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, first of all, what does it mean being fully present with motherhood? Are you doing that now? What's the difference?
Yeah, well, I'm usually writing a lot and seeing clients a lot, which are two things that I'm not really doing right now. So, that means that, yeah, on the day to day, I'm just here with my children.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I work from home anyway, right? And so does my husband. So we're always around our kids, but it's more about where's my attention being focused. Also, I really want my children,
Mm-hmm.
I want my children to be participating with this. They're 5 and 3. They're excited about the birth of this baby. So this is, I'm we're all sort of awaiting this baby's arrival together. It's a whole family thing. They're very excited about it. We do home births. This is my third natural home birth that I'll be doing with a doula at home.
Mm-hmm. Okay. There's a few things that come up for me. Let me just think. Okay. So we're gonna look at your transits as well now
Yeah.
because it's
Oh,
it's
definitely.
becoming relevant. Um,
Very relevant.
Uranus, Mars. I don't. Do I want to leave the moon? No, I don't. Yeah, I'm just gonna make it very simple.
Hmm.
Okay, so there's two things that I am hearing very strongly. One of them is Saturn transiting your sun, because you said that you tend to be very social, like in life. You're a very front-facing person. That's the words you used, right? So
Hmm.
that's the Aries. And doing a lot and working with a lot of people. So there's all
Hmm.
the 11th house happening. And now it's just not that way, right? So there I feel the suppression of Saturn to the sun.
Hmm.
And you said that you have your hands full. So I'll be interested to understand what is preventing you, right? We can talk about that more. But the other thing that I feel pretty strongly is that Jupiter in Cancer. Not just because you're pregnant, but also because of the situation around the pregnancy. First, you said that you really wanted to give yourself to motherhood. And the way that I read that is not do anything else, but like have your primary thing and everyday thing be a mom and be with the kids and just like be family and experience family. Not worry about clients and work and all that stuff, right? Do I understand correctly?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Okay, right. So this awakening is coming now and not with the previous kids, but right now, for me, it's Jupiter that is in
Hmm.
Cancer
Hmm.
currently, right,
Hmm.
with this kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that you guys are doing it together as a family. And then the home births really intrigued me. That made me think again about your moon, but we didn't get far enough for me to really get enough info. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Okay, does that
okay.
make sense?
Yeah, yeah, very much so. I mean, also I know my progressed ascendant is also in Cancer. I don't know how close it is to my Jupiter, but it may be. I definitely have some, yeah, there's definitely some Jupiter activations there. But yeah, the home birth piece is that's been interesting. This strong need to reclaim something very ancestral about birth and motherhood that I feel like has been lost collectively, but also particularly in my lineage. In my family, there's a lot of fear around birth. And so I've already broken a huge pattern by having two natural and really beautiful home births with my other two children. This one feels really big, probably because for a lot of reasons. Just once again, you said Saturn being on my sun. I also have Neptune on my sun. So, it's quite a big transformational moment for me, which, you think would happen just with your first baby, but it seems like it happens with everyone. Um, but it's also a pretty intense moment right now to be birthing a child. There's all of that Aries that's coming in right now. My father's an Aries, I'm an Aries. This baby is going to be an Aries. So there's just an interesting like lineage thing happening right now around that. Um, but
Wow.
yeah, this very strong desire to make birth beautiful and sacred, and also to surrender into it and all the things that come up with it, which there's a lot of fear and it's a facing of death, and it is a whole, I mean, there's quite a lot going on with that. um but it's felt important for me to do that. It's also felt important for me to do that to show my family, and also in a public way, because I do think this is something that collectively women, I guess my feeling is that women can reclaim, is their empowerment in birth.
Mm-hmm. Okay. One thing that stood out to me, which is why I put up, especially the moon and Saturn, I'll take out Jupiter for now.
Hmm.
But it's this focus that you placed on birth and the fear that your family in particular has had about birth and
Hmm.
therefore death, of course. And how you are bringing back like traditions. Yeah, so in that entire kind of thing that you just shared, I'm feeling the Moon Saturn trine, especially the Sagittarius.
Yeah.
And what comes up for me is so what is it? What is this thing about death and birth in your family?
I
The
mean, I
fear.
don't know that it's necessarily unique to my family. I just think that, women die in the process of childbirth, literally sometimes, of course, but I mean to themselves to be reborn. There is a way in which you come upon that threshold. There is a need to sort of prepare for that, even psychically. And so it feels like it, especially in transition, which is a big part of the birthing process. There is this feeling of like, I'm going to die. I can't make this. And to me, it's very similar to plant medicine work. In fact, I think the thing that has prepared me the most as a person to walk into like an unmedicated natural labor and have a lot of trust in the process has been all the work I've done with plant medicines. Because it's very similar. I would say it's just the most intense psychedelic journey of a lifetime, maybe behind your own birth and death, which I can't speak much to. But in my family, my own birth was considered very, very traumatic by my mother. My whole life, she told me how horrible and traumatizing and the most horrible pain it was. And I remember with my first birth, my dad being like, "You have to go to the hospital," and like, I mean, essentially like ruining my baby shower by trying to like convince everyone that I needed to go to the hospital to make this whole big deal out of it. But his mother, my dad was born in a tiny village in Greece, in the mountains, and his mother birthed six kids by herself, and no hospital around anywhere. And so I have photos of my grandmother and of her house on my birthing altar, like in front of where I give birth. As I've pulled those pictures out every time as a reminder of like what I can do, and what my lineage has done forever. Um, and yeah, it just feels very important to me to bring this back for my family and for my kids to witness it. And so for them not to be afraid, to break that pattern entirely.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now I don't know because I have different conversations with every person, but most people don't really talk about that.
Yeah.
And for you, I can see that there's an emphasis in connection to having children and showing your family that it's okay and breaking through. Like you said, like ending that cycle, kind of.
Hmm.
Um, so there I feel the moon Saturn very much. Also that you were told all your life by your mom how painful it was for her to have kids. Do you see that? The moon
Oh yeah.
Saturn, do you understand?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I definitely see it with my father, but well, Saturn being my my paternal lineage, because that's a big
Hmm.
piece of it, right? But yeah, I mean, that was also just a huge part of my life story, was this feeling. I did a lot of work with healers throughout my life to heal wounds about my own birth. Um, a sense of not being wanted here, which is also very, I think, the Saturn retrograde piece there, or being immediately rejected because of how traumatic my mom's birth was with me. I fractured three of her pelvic bones. So there's Saturn again, her coccyx when coming out. Now, granted, I was we were at a hospital. They were using forceps. She was forced to labor on her back. She had an epidural, so she couldn't feel anything. But, that was the whole story. It was like, basically, you broke me trying to come through. And thus, there was almost like something wrong with me, as opposed to there's something wrong with this entire system of how birth is done.
Interesting. So did that influence, of course it did. How did that influence your contact with your mom
We were
growing
not
up?
very, yeah, we were not very close. In fact, I have that kind of like Aries oldest daughter syndrome, where I spent a lot of my childhood being sort of Athena to my dad Zeus, where I was like, Mom, who needs a mom? I want to be like my dad. He was a, entrepreneur, and I was like, I want to be like him. There was a big piece of my life where I felt more, I felt stronger than my mother. I found her to be sort of week. And we didn't, she never breastfed me for very long. We didn't have a close bonding, which is another thing that I feel very strongly about. And I breastfeed my kids. That's a big thing for me. We've since really healed our relationship. She's done a lot of work also. And so we're close now, and I confide in her quite a lot. But as a child, I wanted to be like my father, and I definitely felt yeah, I would say I had that sort of Athena archetype very strongly as a kid.
Hmm. Okay, that makes me think about a couple things. First of all, it makes me think about your progressed ascendant being in Cancer
Mhm.
because of just all the motherhood stuff that you're so entrenched in now, like
Mhm.
having the natural births and having your family around, and just like all of that from you. That you want it to be more like your father makes me think a lot about Venus being co-present with the sun in Aries.
Mhm.
And just enjoying more of the male activities, right?
Yeah,
Like being in the business. Yeah.
I mean, I have a very traditional Greek father. He definitely wanted a son, and I was the firstborn, and I tried to fill that gap. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Okay. Interesting. How?
I pushed myself very hard in academics, physically, in sports. Every time it was like, you're just a girl, you're weak, you can't do he would have guys over and they'd be playing soccer and stuff in the yard. And I was always like, I can be as tough as the boys. I can be as fast as the boys. I can, you know what I mean? And I was much more of a tomboy as a child. Anyway, a lot changed for me during puberty, but prior to that, I think I was trying to be the son that my dad initially wanted. And like I said, I didn't have a whole lot of respect for the feminine because I didn't see my mom as a particularly strong figure. I found her to be very overshadowed by my father, and I was like, "Ooh, I don't want that." I mean, most of my life, I thought I didn't want kids. A lot of that came later when I did this deeper sort of healing work around my birth, around my relationship with my mother.
Interesting. So, a few things. One of them is about you being very strong and your mother being kind of weak, and you're feeling like, yeah, I'm gonna be like the boys, I can do everything they can do.
Hmm.
So, that for me comes up in a few places. One of them is that you have mostly fire in your chart, and especially both of your sun and moon are in fire signs. Right? So more male energy, more expressive, more social, more upfront,
Hmm.
more warm, more obvious, right? Not
Direct.
clever,
Yeah.
direct. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also that your moon in Leo is trine your Venus in Aries. That makes me think about how much you like to be with the boys, and it's natural for you to do boy stuff.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to say something?
No, I always very comfortably found myself in those situations. And then even after puberty, I think it took a long time before I felt like, I mean, it's funny given that right now I predominantly work with women and have for years. But I would say my teen years and my early 20s, I found it a lot more easy to be in social groups with men. I mean, I lived in a house with my ex-boyfriend and four guys during college. So I was like the
Ah,
matriarch of the house, because I felt it was a lot. It was just easier integration for me than a lot of sort of the complicated social dynamics that can happen with women.
okay,
Um,
so you said until after your puberty.
yeah, I mean, I was a tomboy when I was young, and then I think I started getting into more sort of girly things during puberty because, of course, the dynamics changed, right? All of a sudden, the boys were looking at me differently than they did before,
Okay,
right?
yes. Can I show you something?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. It's because you're born with the Sun Venus conjunction in Aries, right? So for you, being a tomboy comes natural. Being around the guys is natural. Being one of them is, but in puberty, you would be around like 13, 14, right?
Mm-hmm.
12, 13, 14. That is when your Venus progresses into Taurus,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the change. So you're not that much with the boys anymore. Now you get more of the girl stuff happening.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It's a
Okay.
really
And
good
then you
call.
start working with women more,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very much so. Yeah. That's a cool find. That's right. Yeah.
How old were you when you had your first kid?
I was 34 when I had my first daughter, 36 with my second, and I just turned 40.
So the first two were girls.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. You see, that's interesting because I'm gonna open a progress chart
Mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna go back. Okay, it was 20. Sorry, what year was your first kid born?
Oh, she was born during the pandemic. It was 2020. Yeah.
2020. And then your second kid?
2022,
When in 2022?
September.
Okay. Okay, so yeah. Just what intrigues me about you having two daughters after you being a tomboy and being so much around your dad is that your progressed Sun and Venus have moved into Taurus. So there's all
Mm-hmm.
this girl energy coming in your life now
Mm-hmm.
and all the woman. Does that make sense?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, a lot changed when my progressed sun moved into Taurus, right? Because I'm a 1 degree sun in Aries, so it was like the first almost 30 years of my life. It was very Aries, and a lot of people their progressions can happen sooner than that. But it was a very big change. My progressed sun moved into Aries, and then I moved away from the cities. I was living out in a tiny home in the redwood forest, being very immersed in
Ah,
nature,
well,
simplifying my life, kind of settling as opposed to sort of being this adventurous pioneer all the time. And then that was when I met, my partner, and we started this, you know, journey of creating a family together. And so, yeah, it was a very clear demarcation when my son progressed into Taurus that life was changing. Yeah.
right. Also being away from the city in a small place, the 12th house.
Hmm.
And also now being in Mexico, like away from your home country,
Well, and
around
I'm
nature, I guess, plenty of it.
I'm also living on my north node is in Taurus. I'm living on my north node ascendant line. So I am in my relocated chart a Taurus rising here in Mexico, where I've been for the last 5 years.
Ah, okay.
So it
Mm-hmm.
brings that 12th house to the first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there's no like, okay, there's no like projects or anything that you guys are like looking to establish now. Or
Like what?
I don't know. And because I'll tell you, because I'm looking at progressed Venus, she's applying an opposition to Saturn, right? That's
Mm.
happening over the next few years. That tells me there's something developing. Maybe you guys are establishing something in Mexico.
I mean, yeah, that's interesting. What are we establishing here in Mexico? I mean, I feel like we have been establishing our framework, our community here. I don't know about necessary. I think we're still sort of on the fence of like, do we want to buy a place here? Is this a place we're staying for a very long time? A lot of it has been, I mean, us deciding to move to Mexico, we've lived in two different places in Mexico now, has been very intuitive. It's been like, it's time to move. Here we go. And then doors opened and we just go. And I think, we've sort of been in this sense of like, if it feels right to shift, we will. And if it's not, then we stay. But I don't think there's, and this is probably also my my very fire and air orientation, but um there's not really like a long-term plan, right? The long-term plan is we are together as a family, we take care of each other, we keep living in alignment with our values. But the plan is not like we live here for X number of years and then we do this or whatever. It's very open to what feels like it's unfolding in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Why
we
do you
have.
say,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say we also have the benefit of being able to be location independent given the kind of work we do. I mean, it behooves us to stay somewhere a little bit because of the community building aspect and how that's helpful. But, both my husband and I, our livelihoods are generally more tied to working online. So, there isn't exactly, aside from like, one of the things I think that really keeps us here at this time is how much I really appreciate the nature-based Waldorf school that my kids are in. um, it's just super cool. It's a very different way of doing education, and there's a lot of more alternative types of educational opportunities here. And I like that. And so right now it's like that's the best thing for them. So that's sort of why we're sticking around here. Because
In-
we're in rural Mexico. It's mountains and you know.
Okay, that again makes me think about your progressed sun being in the 12th house, Taurus.
Mhm.
Rural Mexico, mountains and nature around. Mm-hmm. And the nature-based Waldorf school. Okay, so you guys like where you are. And what do you do at home? Like, what is the home life like?
Um, Good question. Well, my husband's a jeweler. He's an artist, so he has this jewelry studio downstairs. He spends a lot of time in there. Spends a
Aha.
lot of time making food. He's really influenced my oldest daughter with art, so she's making art all the time. He's always setting up cool art projects for them. And we've got a nice little backyard with the
What,
aerial.
so hold on a minute. So he's a jeweler. Oh, sorry. It's nice that it's just when you every single new piece of information is like, oh, 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 oh. Okay. so he's a jeweler and he
Mhm.
works downstairs. So is it like in the basement or on the ground floor and you guys are on the second
Gra-
floor or what?
Ground floor, ground floor. So yeah, the house we're in right now. And so this is another interesting thing is we've lived in 7 houses in the last 5 years since we've lived in Mexico. So, we move into furnished homes. We don't own anything anymore. We just like we have, our kids' stuff and our clothes and things. But, it's a very like everywhere we move is a fully furnished home. And I've just never found the spot we really like long enough to stay, in terms of just the house itself. But this place is a yeah 3 bedroom upstairs, and then it has a room downstairs that he's converted into a jewelry studio. And usually we're hanging out downstairs. I'm just up
So
here right now.
what does it mean a what are you doing? He makes jewelry.
Yeah, he does custom. He's been a jeweler for 20 years. He makes custom jewelry with gold and silver and gemstones, raw and faceted. He's pretty well known in his
So
kind of
what I'm
world.
imagining is someone is working with like this thing and then there's like a little torch and then
Yep. Yep,
like
he's soldering. He's got those funny little glasses on that make him see things very, very small. And he's in that room for, hours on end. I mean, given the fact that we have small children now, he'll work for several hours throughout the day when I can keep the kids occupied. But a lot of the work happens for him once we put them to bed because it requires like concentrated focus time, that isn't interrupted by children all the time.
uh-huh. Does he make, is it noisy work or very quiet?
It's quiet. It's quiet. Yeah.
Hmm. And you said that your daughter is very influenced by him artistically. So can you give an example of something she's done recently or they've done recently together?
I mean, she's just making art all the time. I mean, yeah, but Easter was the other day, right? So, he's always coming up with cool art projects for them to do. So they were dyeing eggs, and he had some cool ideas of ways to do it differently. And then he was making these like helping them make these images with salt, and then they were watercoloring over them together. My youngest does it too, but she's 3, so her attention span isn't fully there. But my oldest daughter, she will make art all day, and she calls herself an artist. And I think a lot of it is just having witnessed her father do this work, and it's in her chart too. I mean, she's got her Venus in Libra, and there's just some things like that in her chart that I think are naturally. I kind of expected that from her, but it's cool to see.
It just makes me think about because now I'm really focused on your moon.
Hmm.
And of course, the all the images that come up for me. So what's happening inside the house, right? So one of the things you told me is your husband is working in his jewelry
Hmm.
with the jewelry. So that makes me think about the Leo in the sense of like all the stones that are at home, all the
Yeah,
expensive jewels, the
there is.
ritzy.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is, he is a Leo. He's a Leo Sun, Mercury, and Jupiter, and they're all degrees right around my moon there. Um,
Okay.
but but yes, I mean, I would say that we have we have quite a large collection, and that is of the most expensive items that belong to us that are in this home would be really, really high end faceted crystals and a lot of gold and a lot of silver. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so there, do you see the moon there
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
Leo? And also that she's exactly trine Venus in your chart, right? Because they're both at 16. So that trine is
Hmm.
very strong. That makes me think about how many that you have a collection, actually. Quite some. And specifically that he does something that is so, how can I even explain? So hard, kind of.
It is,
Like
yeah.
it's such masterful work. Yeah, you have to be a
It is.
master actually. That's not you have to apprentice for that kind of work. Right? So
Yeah.
that makes me think about the Saturn aspect of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the
No.
stones as well, right? Okay.
Yeah, he's a craftsman for sure. Yeah, and I think his Pluto is exactly opposite my Venus, but he's also passionate about mining crystals. So that isn't where he gets most of his stones, although a lot of our collection is, but not necessarily the ones he uses. But in his free time, my husband takes the girls out into the mountains and they will dig and mine for crystals, which is very Plutonian to me. It's like finding this, magic hidden in the earth kind of a thing. It's cool.
Interesting. They go mining together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have to think about that. The other thing that really stood out to me is you saying that he's has different art projects for them to do. So what I immediately see, of course, and you said your daughter's doing art all day and she calls herself an artist, right? So your home is a very artistic home, an expressive home. That is what I hear. There's a lot of
Mhm.
art happening. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I
for
guess it's
me,
also like fun and warm.
yeah, I would say our home is very fun and warm and inviting. We both love hosting. This house particularly hasn't been the most ideal for it. And then kind of back to what you were saying, Saturn on my son. But in other homes we've lived in, we've been very much like hosting gatherings and, we've had big celebrations or just have our home open all the time to friends and their children to come and be with us. So it's interesting that, like you said about the sun,
Uh-huh.
Saturday on the sun, that this moment in time has not particularly been the most ideal for that, which is fine, but that is, I would say, generally speaking, something that's very true about us is that our door is always open and we often have, and even now, we often have guests. So since the beginning of this year, we've had at least 5 different women come and stay with us for a week to several weeks on end, to
Oh, beautiful.
yeah, to just come and be here to, teach, show them Mexico. But it's sometimes it's friends that are, work trading in the sense that they're helping out with my kids a little bit and supporting us as a family. And in exchange, we are taking them to do cool things around Mexico. And we've done that ever since we've moved to Mexico.
Okay.
We,
So do you see this trine in
Mhm.
everything you're describing?
Yeah, very much. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that you
Yeah.
like to host people very often in your house. Your doors are open. You have to have different events, parties. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're
Yeah. And
very
it's
strong at
women
trine.
specifically. I mean, we
Right.
haven't, yeah, and we haven't really hosted any men, yeah.
Yeah, also that they come and stay and you show them around. Yeah, so there I'm thinking the Aries, right? Because it's not like you
Mhm.
guys are just sitting there and meditating. You're going out and doing stuff. You're showing them like Mexico. That's the
Yeah.
11th house for me. Like, yeah, let's
Yeah.
see the restaurants. Let's see the hiking trails or whatever.
Yeah, a big part of it is showing them the community also, because I think that's one of the things that's been so special about living as an expat. We have this awesome community here that gets together every week and we sauna together and we swim in the river together. And, I take a lot of my friends, some of these friends are younger women who want to have kids one day and I take them to the kids' school and I say, like, look at all these cool community events happening at this very alternative educational thing because I'm trying to showcase a very different way of living that's available and possible that people may not have been exposed to before.
Okay, that makes me think about the grand trine between the moon and Venus with your Saturn and Sag.
Mm-hmm.
That you're so like, hey, like look at this schooling. Like, look at this way of living. Let me show you how things can be.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That also makes me think that maybe a lot of the events that you have, they're also kind of networking, like getting clients together or something.
Sure, yeah. I mean, one of the things I think that's interesting about the fact that I have this business online is that I do get clients via the internet. I mean, that's always been the case given that my work is online. But the truth is that the majority of the people that work with me are people that I have developed personal relationships with over the years. And a lot of it has been because I have been very social. I go to, before I had kids, I used to go to a lot of events. I held a lot more events. I traveled a lot. I would go to a lot of festivals and gatherings all over the world, and so I seem to have kept. I keep in touch well with people, but a lot of my kind of community of my clients are people that, on some degree, know me a little bit more personally than just in an online professional setting, and that behooves me, for my work to continue to be really, connected to people in that way. Um, generally speaking, as a practice.
hmm And for now, there's no, that stuff is kind of on pause.
I mean, yes and no. It is on pause in the sense that I'm not seeing any clients right now. I'm not writing on my Substack right now. I'm not actively putting anything on my plate, but I had channeled quite a very powerful vision for a retreat that I want to do with women who want to step into motherhood that I plan to do in September with a friend who I've led retreats with before. And so when I need to put some creative energy in something, which, you can imagine from my chart, sometimes there's times where I just need to channel creative energy into something. I've been working on planning this event that I want to do in September, which is specifically supporting women who want to become mothers into tapping into their sovereignty, so that when the time comes that they are birthing or they are raising their babies, they're doing it in a very empowered way. So in a way, it's like preparation for motherhood, but not so much like fertility preparation or necessarily teaching about birth, but more teaching about sovereignty, which is a big part of my work. I think I would just say, generally speaking, is, helping people reconnect to their instincts, their instinctual nature, um, and not relying so much on external authority. That's Saturn on the descendant retrograde, and finding their own inner authority and stepping into sovereignty as a woman, as a mother, and how we can do that.
Yeah, so that you coach and train people and lead them through that process of understanding and expansion and awakening to these perspectives they didn't have initially. For me, that's very much Saturn that is sitting
Hmm.
on your descendant in Sag. But very importantly, the grand trine with Moon and Venus,
Hmm.
because now your point of focus becomes getting women together and
Yeah.
helping them to welcome children in, right? And yeah, what did you just say about?
Well, I was going to say, and being a kind of a matriarch too. I mean, this is a theme that's been big for me right now, is like, collectively, I think in many ways motherhood has been sort of downplayed. It's not respected in our culture in the same way that it is in other places in the world. But that moon in Leo is like, it brings a regalness to motherhood, a power to motherhood. So to me, it's like, what does it mean to be a matriarch and a pillar of a community as a mother?
Right, totally. And together with your Aries placements, for me, that's the reclamation of sovereignty, the total independence and the freedom to act from one's impulses, like the
Mhm.
instinctual nature, right? That's totally Aries.
Yep.
So a lot of your work has to do with that. For me, that's so much your sun that is in
Hmm.
Aries, helping people reclaim their independence,
It's a great
their
moment for
sovereignty.
that collectively right now, actually. So I've been
Totally.
feeling that wave rising and being like, oh, it's the time for me to I mean, people are more welcoming of this message right now than at other times, and I feel like I have specific codes right now that are helpful for this moment, given that that is my natal placement.
Okay, see, yeah, totally. That makes me think about the Saturn-Neptune conjunction right on your sun. Right
Yeah.
now, we start to see a bit about what that's about. It's a new start for you where you're sharing the sovereignty codes with the
Hmm.
world.
Hmm.
Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, it's been interesting because there's so many layers to that, because yeah, I mean, Saturn and Neptune on my sun have brought both challenges and also this piece we're talking about right now, some clarity about that for me and what that next phase is for me. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's been over the last year, that has definitely been the biggest story of my life, right? Is Saturn and Neptune both dancing over my sun at the same time. I remember 2020 looking at 2026 and being like, oh God, I wonder what's going to happen then, because I was like, that's not, that's no small thing. Neptune's only doing that once, and this is only my second time having Saturn on my sun. And the first was really rough as a 10-year-old. It was when my parents separated and my dad was removed from my home by social services. It was kind of this very like traumatic thing. So I remember like thinking about this time period years ago and kind of being really curious about what it might look like.
Ah, wait, sorry, can I just, yeah, okay.
I
Um,
told you you'd have to rein me in.
yeah, totally. Now I see that. Now I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Um, it's about your father being evicted from
And
Child
not,
Protective Services.
yeah, I mean, not evicted essentially, but yeah,
Like taken away, right?
yes, yes.
Okay. And then he was gone for a while, or?
Well, and then I wasn't allowed to see him without visitation for a while. There was a lot of like legal proceedings through my parents' separation and custody issues.
Okay,
Um,
just this is what you're talking about, this trine. Continue.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that was a huge piece of my identity because what actually spurred that happening was my parents were arguing a lot. It was rather kind of intense and at times violent in my home. And I asked my parents if I could start seeing a therapist when I was 10. which was at that time period that Saturn was going over my sun. And I believe Pluto was also conjoining my natal Saturn simultaneously. And so I started going to therapy. But as a 10-year-old, I wasn't aware of all the legalities of like, okay, well, if I say things that are potentially perceived as child abuse to this person, their job is to get, so it's a certain.
Ah.
And so the next thing that happened was that because of me exposing private things about our family life, my father was removed from the house. So I actually took the brunt of kind of the blame from my dad for being the one who was the downfall of our family unit. But on another note, I sort of liberated my mom from a situation that wasn't good for her, but that she didn't have the strength to leave. So I mean, it was definitely, I mean, it changed everything about our whole family, and it was entirely spurred on by me as a 10-year-old.
Okay, that also makes me think about your sun being at 1 degree of Aries.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, just because you're the one to initiate a big change for the whole family. But
Yeah.
of course, in the first place, everything you described for me is very much this moon on the IC, trine Saturn on the DC.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Mom? That's not in a good situation. All the arguing, especially because it's the
Mm-hmm.
two fire signs and they don't get along. The dad is eventually removed, that you're seeing from a very early age, a psychotherapist, that you don't understand the legalities, but you end up being at the center
Mm-hmm.
of him being, yeah, right? So there for me is also the moon in Leo, that it's your fault, right?
Yeah, it was my fault. And for a long time, yeah, I carried guilt around that. I mean, it wasn't until later that I realized that I initiated something that actually was very necessary for
Hmm.
there was like this stalemate stuckness happening, but there was other implications. For instance, my sister, who's younger than me, who was devastated by my parents separating, and that it had very negative implications for her for years in terms of how she perceived it, and how she viewed me, and so it created a lot of strife between the two of us that we've had to repair. And
Mm.
so, I mean, it was a very big thing. And so it was interesting though, because that was during that time that Saturn was conjoined my sun the previous cycle. And
Right,
so,
okay.
when I knew it was going to come around this time, I was sort of like, what's going on with this, Um, and I think it's interesting because I don't know if I'm having a boy or a girl. My sense is I'm having a boy, and he's going to be an Aries, which, like I said, I am, and so is my father. And there's been a lot of stuff coming up with my dad over the
Mm.
past year as well, just personal, interpersonal issues with my dad that have come very center. We didn't talk for a few months. We were arguing, just a lot of. And so it feels like there is also something coming with this child that is a continuation of this work that's happening
Oh,
with our
wow, that's
family
so
line.
deep. Yeah, that makes me think about this child coming during the Saturn-Neptune conjunction on your son being at 1 degree of Aries, you being the one to change your family because of how you broke them up. Whoa, yeah, I'm with you. I'm feeling what you're feeling. Probably not as much, obviously, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of the big mystery of this moment, right? Is like, I don't know who's about to come and join us and change the dynamic of our family entirely. But
Interesting.
they feel consequential. That's been the feeling I've had this whole pregnancy, is that this child is bringing in something very consequential for my whole family, not just our nuclear family here, but my
Oh,
lineage.
wow.
And
Oh
if they
my
were a
goodness.
boy, they would be the firstborn grandson. I'm the only one. My sister and I, and my dad has another child with his second marriage. So I have a half brother, but I'm the only one that has had children yet. And we haven't had any boys yet. So, you know.
Yeah, Aries would, yeah, it would make sense that it's a boy because of all the Aries energy, like you said. Very interesting. Mm-hmm.
I love
Um,
how much we've gotten out of just these few kind of um positions we've looked at. I mean, there's been you haven't needed to bring in a ton of other things, and I really appreciate how much you can extricate from just very few positions in a chart. I think that's phenomenal.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's so much more in those positions because the more you talk, right, the more they come to life, the more you see about them, the more places you recognize how
Mhm.
they're showing up the same pattern again and again.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, I want to do something a little different because you're more of an advanced student. So it's going to be easier for you. So we're gonna do I'm just gonna ask you about like this week, specifically this Monday, if you remember, just like what was happening this week? What's the theme?
That's funny because Monday I was so sure I was going into labor. I had a really intense experience on Monday. So yeah, I started to feel really strong oxytocin surges. One of the things about having a physiological birth, which means an unmedicated birth, is that, and I'm also very sensitive to this kind of stuff as a person anyway, but is that you get to experience the natural hormonal cascade that birth brings. And so one of the things that begins to happen is that you feel a lot of um, this hormone, oxytocin, as well as endorphins, that can feel really good. I mean, to some degree, it feels like being on a high. And so Monday morning, I recognized the baby had engaged and dropped very low in my pelvis, which is an indication for me that this is starting anytime now. And I started to have these waves where, for the majority of the day and all through the entire night, I mean, I felt like I was tripping. I felt like I was on medicine. I was just sort of in a very altered state. And I just was like, I had my doula on call because I was like, this is certainly about to happen. And it didn't, which is very funny. And I'm still kind of having these waves, but not to the extent and the intensity that I was having that night. And it's different than my other birds. I've had those experiences, but usually that piece has happened while in the midst of the actual labor, right? Like I'm actually undergoing contractions, the baby's coming in a couple hours, and I'm in this very altered mental state. I hadn't had it happen like this before, where kind of this interesting lead up to it. It's happening, but I mean, it was really interesting to be in that space, also to, kind of let my children sort of witness that process, because it's like they're so sensitive beings. They can sort of see like, all right, mom's like in a zone, like, she's,
So what
she's
is
like,
that like hot like waves of warmth or waves
yeah,
of
well, I mean, I don't know if you've ever done MDMA, for instance, but MDMA releases extreme amounts of oxytocin as well as serotonin. But
right?
it's the bonding hormone. It's what makes you bond with your child, but it actually makes labor happen. That's one of the hormones that actually progresses the labor process, as well as when the baby comes, creates that sense of deep bonding, and the whole family feels it. The dads, when they're around, they'll start to produce more of it as a result of seeing the baby and being around the mother who's excreting it and everything. So it sort of feels like rolling, like on like Molly or ecstasy or something. And so it would just be like every few minutes I would get this wave of warmth that would come over me that made me want to like roll my eyes back. That just felt like very, and it's interesting because I think this is available to all women and people, but you sort of have to let yourself go there, right? Like just like with psychedelics, people can resist the experience and sort of, but if you've worked with it and if you understand what's going on, if you're not afraid of it, you can sort of just let the waves sort of take you. I thought it was interesting given the Mercury's still in Pisces and Mars is still in Pisces. I was like, it felt
Well, I
very,
want to show you something different. If you
yeah.
notice on that day in particular, the transiting sun is at
Mhm.
16 Aries.
Oh, my Venus. Yeah.
Exactly conjunct your Venus and exactly trine your moon in fire signs, right? So think about
Yeah.
it. The whole day you're experiencing these waves of warmth throughout your body, and it's
Yeah.
about the baby coming, right? There's
Yeah.
the connection with the moon and Venus. And specifically in this case, because it's a family experience at this point, as you said, right? You bring in the kids, they're watching, they're sensitive, they know what's going on, so let's just
Yeah.
show them, right? So for me, that context of what's happening is the square with Jupiter and Cancer
Mhm.
that's here
Also it's
simultaneously.
also it's 16. Yeah, 16 was
Also
that.
at 16, exactly right. So
Yeah.
at this time, it's with the kids at home, I guess all the time you're talking about the baby, it's gonna come any moment, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Very
Exactly.
okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That
so
was very much the day Monday. I mean, I was so sure. that baby was coming. So it's been interesting that then everything sort of took a pause for a minute. And then I was like, oh man, we're not going to be able to avoid this massive Aries stellium, because now I'm like, well, I guess we're waiting for Mars to enter into Aries too. That seems to be where my head goes, is like, okay,
Uh-huh.
well,
I see.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be that crazy for Mars activating my sun at 1 degrees to be an
Right.
initiation.
Totally. Okay, good. Let's pause here for today.
Okay.
So, what did you think about all that?
That was wonderful. That was great. That was so cool. I really appreciate it. I mean, being an astrologer, it's like you could talk about this stuff all day. It's so fascinating. And I love, getting to have conversations with other astrologers on the things that they see, because it's like you could know your chart and stare at it for your whole life and still not take on a perspective that somebody else would take on it. So yeah, I thought that was fantastic. And I'm very happy to share this too publicly with my, my following and everything as well, to put it out there. So
Okay, great. I'm just gonna stop recording and then we'll talk for a couple minutes, okay?
oh sure.
All right. So, Sabrina and I are signing out from this episode. Okay.